All right, welcome back. As you can see, I'm still working on a vertical stabilizer. I've got all of the skeleton pieces primed, and now I'm starting to work on dimpling all the flanges to get ready for the skins. What you have to do is you put a dimple in each of the flanges on the skeleton pieces that make contact with the skin, and you do the same thing with the skin itself. Dimple all the holes to where it gets riveted to the skeleton, and that's all to make the rivets flush with the skin to minimize drag on the airplane overall. So it's a process of using the, in this case I'm using the pneumatic squeezer. Makes it a little faster. They do have a hand version of this tool, but the pneumatic squeezer makes it a little faster, a little easier to zip along and get the dimpling done. I've got a adjustable ram on that dimpler, and what I mean by that is the pneumatic portion pushes a rod that has the dimple die, and it pushes it against a stationary dimple die, and that's what creates the dimple. And so I ended up buying an adjustable ram that is supposed to make it a little easier, because the other option is to have spacers to make sure that the gap is small enough that the dimple die is actually squeezed together when you actuate the pneumatic trigger. So I bought it because I'd heard that it's a lot easier to use. You don't have to worry about setting the washers or the spacers correctly. But the problem I ran into is that it actually bent. So not sure if obviously I had it extended too much when I adjusted it. I adjusted it too far, and for the air pressure I was using, it just bent the screw. So it's not useful anymore. It binds with the arm of the pneumatic squeezer, so it doesn't actuate. So I went to back to the washers, the spacers, and it works just fine. I have no problems with it whatsoever now. Here you see me finally getting to use the C-frame dimpler, using that to make the dimples of the skin. As you can see, you take a mallet and you line up the hole, and you hit the top of the C-frame, and it makes a dimple. I had some close-up shots of it, but unfortunately my GoPro camera apparently was not set up correctly. You can see it there at the bottom of the screen on the table, sitting on a tripod there. I thought it was working. Either I lost the film from it, or it wasn't actually running well. I thought it was. So anyway, what I do here is go through every hole on the skin and apply a dimple to it, so that, as I said, that when I get ready to rivet the skins to the skeleton of the vertical stabilizer, the rivets will be flush with the skin, and you'll be able to, you won't be able to see any kind of protrusion. So you go through every skin, and it gets kind of a tight squeeze as you're getting close to the crease. You just kind of have to work it a little bit, and along the edges you can actually use the squeezer, and that also helps quite a bit. So you use the C-frame dimpler here for all the holes in the middle of the skin, and then you can use the pneumatic squeezer to get the edge pieces where it can reach. It's got about a 3 or 4 inch reach on the yokes that I have. Here I'm making sure that I don't dimple. There's 6 specific holes that you don't dimple, and again, that's I talked to that before. There's the fairings. When you attach the vertical stabilizer and the horizontal stabilizer to the tail cone, there's a fairing that kind of makes that all meld together and form nicely. Well, that's the attachment points, and you don't dimple those just yet, and that's what the instructions have you do. But back to the pneumatic squeezer, it's a pretty good tool. It makes for a very quick dimpling process, and also I can put in dies to help me squeeze rivets, actually, and they're just basically 2 flats that it squeezes together, and it squeezes the rivet, and you just apply the correct air pressure. So it's a very useful tool. I was glad to be able to get that from my grandfather-in-law. It helps tremendously. So eventually I will do the same thing to the rest of the skeleton that you see sitting on the table there, and I'll use the pneumatic squeezer for that as well. There's a couple points on the skin itself, like I said, where the crease is. There's holes at the top there and at the bottom that I have to get access to, and with the crease there, it's not very easy to get the pneumatic squeezer in there. That's actually where I screwed up on this piece, and why I had to get a new skin is the very forward hole on the near the crease on the top side where my hand is right there. I tried to use a pneumatic squeezer on that, and I unfortunately punctured a hole right next to the hole I was trying to dimple, and that's not something you can recover from. It's there's no way to mask that, and so I tried to think of a way to fix it, and just finally decided I'm just going to go ahead and order a new piece along with the doubler for the rear spar. So other than that, through the rest of this video is going to be just pounding away at this skin. Ends up being all for naught, unfortunately, but at least this is the first time using the C-frame dimpler, and so it makes for a good experience in that regard. Then going forward, I actually start working on the rudder within the next video or two, while I'm waiting for my new parts here, the skin and the doubler for this, and I get to use the C-frame a little bit more and try to figure out how to use it a little better so I'm not scratching the surface. Like I said, I've taken all the bluing off of all of the pieces, because eventually when I go to paint this airplane, they're going to scratch the heck out of it anyway, and get rid of, you basically get it so that the primer will adhere better. So I'm not too worried about scratches, but I want to make sure I don't actually gouge something by dragging it across the dimple die. So it's all part of the learning process, the learning curve, if you will, and so far it's been a pretty good process. Now, as I said, I made these tables from the EAA website. They have a page there that shows dimensions and all that, and I went down to the lumber store and got all the materials. But unfortunately, my tables aren't exactly the flattest, so you saw me there kind of moving the table and wiggling it, trying to find a smooth spot. It was the C-frame is kind of wandering as I'm hitting it with the mallet each time. It'll move a little bit, so I'm just trying to find a better alignment for it. So as I said, I do have a GoPro sitting on a tripod there. I do start to use it in the next couple of videos. In fact, I think the next video is where I finally have some footage from it. And I try to get some close-ups of the things that I'm doing, instead of this single shot that I have here that I've had in the last few videos. Try to integrate some close-up shots, so you can actually see, how I'm operating the tool, how I'm, doing the dimples, how I'm doing the rivets, things like that. Also, I try to be a little more cognizant about getting shots of using the drill press or the bandsaw, things like that. So as I said, as I learn how to edit and think more of production style, I guess, as I'm building, hopefully my goal is to make these videos not just quote unquote entertainment, in not that these are exciting videos by all means, but more in the fact of entertaining us. It's just something to watch. But I'm also trying to make my idea is to make them educational for anyone else that's intending to look into building an RV-14. I want to try to make this something that's useful to give you an idea of what you would be getting yourself into. Also, there's a couple parts here where you kind of are not exactly sure of what the instructions are trying to say. So my goal is to be able to get to those points and maybe grab the video and do a close-up of what the step, the gotcha step, so to say, may be saying, and work it out, and so that someone watching this will come across that and say, yes, I've seen that, and this is how it was approached. So hopefully it'll be helpful to somebody. Again, for those who have watched these videos, I appreciate it. If you have any questions, by all means, let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions or address any comments. If nothing else, try my best to look up an answer and get it to you. Like I said, I want this to be an educational process as well as a video for my purposes of keeping record of what I did to make this airplane. I think what I'm getting here out of my toolbox is a dimpling tool that you can attach to a tabletop. The idea being that if you have a tight squeeze that you can't quite get a squeezer into, or obviously you can't use a C-frame for, such as a small flange on a rib or something like that, you would attach this to the table and then take a die, a male-ended die, and lay it over the top of your piece, and then take a hammer and basically pound it into this tool that's attached to your tabletop to make the dimple. I've used it a couple times and it makes for an awkward attempt at dimpling, but if you've got no other means to get to the piece that you need to, then that's what you're going to do. So here I'm taking a pneumatic squeezer and finishing the last couple holes to dimple, and right about here is where I messed up. As you can see, I'm really having to wiggle to try to get the pneumatic squeezer back off, and I looked down there and I saw the hole. This piece is now ruined. There's nothing I can do with it. Oh well, you live and you learn. So I'm going to let this video run out here. I, again, appreciate anybody watching this. If you get a chance, please hit that like button, and we'll see you next time.